And Formula One Philosophy is back for the British Grand Prix recap, the 2025 Silverstone Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that was about to be the best Grand Prix in recent memory. A wet, dry thriller. A lot of fun to watch. A lot of chaos. And a moment that turned my world of F1 upside down, which we will get into in a bit. Can't speak right now, apparently. But before we get into all the details of a fun, chaotic Grand Prix, Sean, how was your week?
My week was okay. I had a long weekend. It was busy, but it was enjoyable. How was yours?
Must be nice. I was working all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's the industry you chose.
Yeah. My long weekend is like every week, essentially. It's pretty nice. I go against traffic at all times, right? Like I'm never going with the flow. So like when I take a trip or a long weekend, it's always against everybody else's. So you're right. I chose it. And I'm gonna own it.
Yeah. So why the fuck are you so bitter about it?
I'm not bitter. I was just trying to make you feel bad, but like when talking to me, I don't think you're ever gonna feel bad about yourself. So
No, that's why we've been friends so long. I need someone to make me feel better about myself.
you feel good about that one?
I do. I feel really good about that one, Nick.
That's on the record. Please play that clip at my funeral. Okay.
Will do.
Okay, so this episode, we usually do good and bad, but depending on how much freakouts or how many freakouts I have, we might just do it as one episode. But we'll say this episode is the good. And to be honest, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. That's why I'm thinking we might end up just doing this all in one episode, because it seemed like each team had one good driver and one bad driver, except for McLaren. But like Mercedes had one driver in the points, one driver in the middle of nowhere. Ferrari, same thing, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Max Verstappen. Does he have a teammate?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but we'll get into that. And then, of course, Gabriel Bortoleto, being a rookie, and his partner, it's taken me 3.5 minutes to get here, Nico Hulkenberg, with his... I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up. Sean, just tell everybody what happened.
After 289 Grand Prix starts, Nico Hulkenberg got his first podium. The record is now sealed. 289 Grand Prix is the longest anybody's gone without getting a podium. Or 288, sorry, because he got it at 289. So he still holds that record, but at least now there's a finite end to it.
I got to eat it this episode. After 2 years of going off on this guy, I got to eat it. And I'd like to apologize for absolutely fucking nothing. He was still the wrong pick in 2023. He had a bad season. He improved a little bit in 2024. But you know what, Sean? God damn it. What a fucking race he had this weekend. What a fucking race. Like I was texting you that he not only just limped into that third place, he earned that third place in a way that I haven't seen since Johnny Herbert in the 90s, Rubens Barrichello at Stewart, Rubens Barrichello at Braun and Williams, Jean Alesi. He finally, instead of just being in this no man's land of his career, he stepped up to their level finally. And I'm going to give him a round of applause because holy shit, that was awesome. Before I go on about it, did you want to add anything?
I think I'll just say I think it was phenomenal. It was not a typical result where Nick can complain about it. That, he only did it because 10 people ahead of him DNF'd or whatever the case is, or penalties, whatever. No. He legitimately made up a shit ton of places on the first lap. and then
11.
Sauber nailed the strategy. 11 places on the first lap. Didn't take the bait, didn't let anybody push them. It was a well-executed race from a team that appears to be getting their shit together. It's not going to save them this year, but it is potentially promising. And maybe this is what Nico needed all along for the last however many years he's been in F1. I can't even remember. Maybe he's needed a team to properly rally around him and actually listen. And I think we're 4 races in a row now where he's scored points.
He's
Obviously,
31 points.
Sorry, go ahead.
31 points in 4 races, not just small points.
yeah. No, it's insane. Is it 31? It is 30 points.
He scored 30, yeah, because so then they've scored 34 points as a team because of Bortoleto.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's fuck, where was I going with my train of thought, Nick? You interrupted me.
Sorry.
You fucking asshole.
Sorry. Okay, well, here.
Anyway.
Yeah, 11 places on the first lap. Didn't take the bait. Went with the strategy. Stuck with it. Held off Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Sauber, you were saying Sauber, it's not going to save him, but it's what they needed. They needed to rally around Nico. That's a good point.
I think Nico needed a team that rallied around him.
Yes.
And it's there. I think he's deserved it. You can say whatever you want about his career, but he is an accomplished racing driver. Famously was almost a Max Verstappen-esque character in the junior series. Came into F1 and didn't have any luck. Then on a weekend off, went and raced Le Mans and won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Came back and still had no luck in F1. And then we know him as Nick's punching bag. But I mean, it's showing that he's still got it. He's still capable of getting out there and even in subpar machinery doing something. And weather is an equalizer. So I wouldn't expect them to be fighting for podiums in any of the other races unless we have some similar weather conditions. But it just goes to show that the cars are so close together. Like you said earlier, the convergence is real. That all it takes is a little bit of a step up and you've got a really mixed up grid.
The weather's never been kind to him in the past.
No, famously, it killed his chance for a podium in Germany
and Brazil 2012 when he was winning the race by a significant margin in a Force India.
Yeah.
And I was expecting that to happen this time. And he's in arguably the worst car he's ever been in. And I'm just waiting for it to happen. But then it goes dry and he still holds off Lewis Hamilton. And still creates a distance 2.5 seconds at the end of the race. And still doesn't make a mistake. When it was right there for him to do everything he used to do. But like you said, 11 places on the first lap. It wasn't mainly because of crashes. It was mainly because of him taking a chance. Who is this guy? I never thought I'd see him race a race like that. And I'm waiting for it to happen. And I texted you, like I was bugging you to watch the race because I just had to talk about it with somebody. But you made me sit for another 9 hours just stewing in my head going, he's exactly the type of driver I'd like to cheer for.
Mm-hmm.
He's washed away all my hatred in one Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just say one thing? And I look back at his career now, and yeah, he has been that development guy, but he's never taken the opportunity with both hands. He's always thought I can just go to this other team and get a little bump here, a little bump there. No, they actually needed his expertise for once that he allegedly always had, and I never saw. But you're right. They're now rallying around him, and now sky's the limit for him. Don't let this be your only podium, Nico. Yeah, go on.
No, and I think you just reminded me of something here that in his career, his teammates have always been similar drivers to him, skill-wise, at least as far as I can remember. This, I believe, is the first real chance he's had to be a leader, where he's had a truly amateur rookie as a teammate. So potentially it's been that teams have tried to build, let's say, a super team like McLaren with him and somebody else, him and Perez, him and Ricardo, him and Magnussen. And then they get lost in this leadership vacuum. They don't know who to go for. Whereas here it's clear. Nico's got, a decade's worth of experience and Bortoleto has 0. So we're going to go for Nico. And oh, look at that. Experience does pay off.
Experience and integration with the engineers, which almost nobody has these days. Sorry.
I don't believe that last part, but okay.
Very few. I can think Verstappen, Piastri, Yuki, maybe sometimes. Hadger.
And they've all got to be integrated with the engineers. There is no F1 racing without the drivers talking to the engineers. Yeah, we get idiots like Fernando Alonso who thinks he's God's gift to drivers, but other than that, I can't think of any reason why anybody else wouldn't be integrating with the engineers.
I'm still waiting for you to correct super team and Kevin Magnussen in the same sentence.
You know what I mean, Nick.
That was another one, was my point. That's well said. I think the only other time he was the clear number one was Paul di Resta at Force India, but he blew all his chances.
How long? That wasn't long, was it?
I think it was 2012.
Was that even a full season?
12 and 13, I think. We should look that up. But yeah,
di Resta got 2 seasons?
I think he got 4. That's British bias at its best, yeah. More on that later.
Well, he's Scottish, not British.
United Kingdom? Is Britain? I don't know. Great Britain? Yeah, you're right. Shut up. Competed in Formula One between 2011 and 2017. How did we let that happen, Formula One?
2017 was probably his one race for Williams.
That is correct.
He served as a reserve driver for a while, so it's not that many seasons.
Oh, it's 2011, 2013. Okay, good. Whew. That's still a long time. But yeah, you were making a point about Nico, Sauber. Yeah. Did we lose your train of thought again?
No, I think I made my point. That's all I really had to say there.
I don't think he can rest on his laurels now. He has to go for more. He has to get. I texted you earlier and I said I was about to text you this actually, and I said he's 1 podium away from Williams, and I deleted that text because I want to say it now. They're 18 points away from Williams, and he puddled around for the first 3-4 months of this season, and now his work with Sauber is paying off in a way that Valtteri Bottas must be. He's a big loser from this weekend. He must be kicking himself. That's what Valtteri was supposed to do for the last 3 years. And I know it was a specific situation there. They kind of gave up on development right away, transitioned from Alpha to Sauber. But I almost feel like Valtteri wasted a great opportunity to have races like this. Yeah,
but I'm not sure that that's Valtteri's problem. I think, similar to what we were talking about earlier, it's a Sauber change as well. Right, we have new management, new leadership at Sauber, and that can't be discredited. And they came into the season. They weren't in those roles last year. They started this year, so that makes sense that for the first, third of the season, they were nowhere, and then come a development, we start to see the fruits of that new management come out and the development work and everything else. So. I don't want to discredit what Nico did. I think he drove really well, but I think it is the team effort of having that experienced driver and having the intelligence at the team to say, listen, guys, we have to actually do this properly. And I think there hasn't been anybody at Sauber for the last 6 years that's been able to do that properly.
Vasseur. Nah, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but he also can't do it on his own. Right? They've restructured that team entirely. So,
to your point, this was more Wheatley than Binotto, right?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Is it both then? So Binotto's helping with development, Wheatley's helping with structural changes like getting the right people in place?
My understanding is Wheatley is the team principal, And Bonotto is the CEO or the one of the directors. Give me a second here. Jonathan Wheatley is listed as a British mechanic on Wikipedia.
Thanks, Wikipedia.
Yeah. He is team principal for Sauber, yes. And Mattia Binotto. Let's see.
Mattia took over from Seidel.
Yes, so Mattia is the chief operating officer.
Right.
So Mattia is very much higher level, and Wheatley is everyday track and team. So it's definitely both of them. Mattia needs to be making the high level decisions, and Wheatley is going to make the decisions kind of towards the team itself. But Mattia is the one that needs to sign the checks and, approve the final decisions, basically. So I think it's a good sign. And I think this is the boost that Audi needed. Not to say that they're going to nail the regulations next year, but given where Sauber was the last couple of years, it wasn't looking great for Audi. But this, having had who they wanted in Andreas Seidel and a couple of other names, to realizing that wasn't working and then putting two people in place and seeing results speaks wonders for the improvement and Audi actually putting effort into this adventure, right? Because if they weren't really into it, all they would have had to do is say, okay, well, we'll keep it as is. We'll see what happens, and then we'll make a decision. But it's clear that they weren't happy. They've made a change, and oh look, something happened. Ferrari, take note.
Yeah, that's pigs fly. That will happen, but whatever. They might be better off, I guess, not holding sixth and getting some more wind tunnel time, but knowing that they can do stuff like this. Essentially, I think they still need all the development they can get.
Yeah, especially going into a new aerodynamic chassis regulation. Yeah.
Plus engines, which is supposed to be Binotto's specialty, right? So they're kind of in good position in both ends.
Audi has its own engine factory, which I don't know that Binotto's been too involved with. As COO, he's probably involved in it, but not necessarily from a design standpoint. So we'll see. You know where I stand on German engines. Leave that there, but
yeah, you'll probably go off for 20 minutes and we'll have to cut out 19 of it. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I am on Team Nico. I already announced last week I was, but now I'm all in on this guy. No longer am I going to be hoping and praying he finishes 19th. I have that reserved for other people that we'll talk about later. Any other goods from the race that you saw? Because like I said, to me, the rest is just a mixed bag.
I'll give Hamilton a good. He was not very optimistic about his chances this weekend. He was not happy with the car. And even in the rain and him complaining that it was undrivable, he put in a good effort. And you could say, okay, it wasn't good because he failed to get past the Sauber and Nico Hulkenberg. But given where his teammate was, that was a commendable effort. See, he was in fourth, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll give him a good. I'll give him the credit of, sucking it up, getting out there, and even in what he described as a shitty car, he got it done. He got it done better than Verstappen did.
Yeah, his podium streak came to an end. I didn't realize he had it for the past how many years. But that's impressive in its own right. To come to an end in this car makes a lot of sense. And you got to feel for him. But you're right, he was steady all weekend, and I haven't heard any complaints about Charles and being screwed by Ferrari strategy. So I'm assuming Charles was way in the back because he chose to go on slicks. And now the media is suspiciously quiet and keeping that under wraps. So
yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. I didn't hear anything about that either.
so Charles fucked up. The lie is in the omission. But I hope, how do I say this? You see what's going on with Nico, and then you see what's going on in Lewis, and yeah, it's Lewis is a little bit older. It's really only 2 years, but that's really the difference. Lewis has always been missing that part of his career. He's always been missing that ability to change, help grow a car that Nico always had and seemed to have just wasted, and is now finally getting the fruits of all his labor. Lewis could really use some of that. And he did say afterwards he's going to have a good long talk with the engineers to tell him exactly what he wants for next year. So I hope that helps him. I don't like seeing him flail like this, to be completely honest, especially when Charles Leclerc looks better.
Yep.
So want to do some mehs before we get onto the bad? It's almost all of them.
I have a.
Oh, you have another good.
Oh, I have at least one more good. Yeah, I'll give it to them because I think they need a bit of a win in Alpine and Gasly. You know, Gasly just kind of fought the entire race, didn't do anything spectacular, but looking back on it, you know, the race was yesterday, right? It's Monday today.
I hope.
The race was yesterday, and having watched it in the evening yesterday, I should be relatively fresh, but I couldn't really remember Gasly doing much. But then when I looked at the points tally, he's got 8 points. So he finished respectably, yeah, in that car, which looked kind of like a turd all weekend. I can't count how many times he spun in practice in the dry. And then we get him in the wet, and he got 8 points. So he needed that. Alpine needed that. So I'll give it to him. That was a good race for him. Same can't be said about Colapinto, but Colapinto didn't take the start, so.
Yeah, that was odd. Apparently he just stalled his car. It sounded like a mafia boss saying, oh yeah, that guy, he's in the hospital because he fell. He fell down the stairs.
The Russian accident. Oh, he fell out of a window. Tripped and stumbled out the window.
You're talking about that executive recently with Putin. Oh my God, I got
Which
one.
I
was going to say I got one even better. Remember that general that caused that rebellion?
Yeah.
Prigozhin.
Yevgeny Prigozhin, yeah.
Yeah.
His plane just exploded.
They were probably playing with grenades. Dude, I died when I saw that one. Yeah, he's probably just stupid playing with grenades on the plane. I didn't blow it up. Oh, man, that's my favorite story of all time. Okay.
The one today was the transport minister who Putin let go, and then hours later, quote-unquote, shot himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody just kills themselves these days. On the day when they announced Jeffrey Epstein had no client list, no blackmail, and he clearly killed himself with the minute of tape cut out from the video. Yeah, thanks everybody. Great job being cops and people in the FBI. Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why I brought that up. With my name being R. Kelly on our chat right now. Anyways, Colapinto, that was odd. Are they going to replace him? Did Briatore make the case like, why would you even start if you're just going to crash? We'll just tell everybody you stalled.
No, I think there was legitimately an issue. They wouldn't have put him out there. So we saw it with Sainz. I think this was something similar. They had a problem. They saw it. They couldn't fix it. So push him back. It happens. It's odd that it happened, but it happens. We'll see. There has been a lot of noise made about Valtteri Bottas going into that seat. And that rumor, I would say, was confirmed this weekend that did occur. there are chats going on between them. So I would like to see it.
That that makes the most
But we'll
sense.
see.
That makes the most sense. They should have done that last year,
Yes.
especially
I'm
with
pretty
Mercedes.
sure it'll come down to a Mercedes wanting to let him go. Right? They may not want to because they want to keep their options open in case they need a reserve driver, a qualified reserve driver.
They might shoehorn him in because of the incoming Mercedes engines, right? Like who's their reserve driver right now? Mercedes, by the way. Sorry, I'm having two conversations at once.
Valtteri Bottas is their reserve driver.
And sorry, there should be another.
Fred Vesti.
Yeah, they rushed Doohan in for reasons. I have a solo episode brewing. I think I know why they rushed Doohan in. And then James Vowles duped the entire world with Franco Colapinto. And there was a Franco-mania for a bit, which is clearly insane. And James Vowles deserves every bit of his new contract for getting Williams essentially a free, whatever, $50 million or $20 million, whatever the Alpine paid stupidly for him. But Valtteri is exactly what they need because Gasly is experienced, winner, consistent driver, slowly getting the most out of that car. That's exactly what Valtteri is. You needed two of those. Esteban Ocon, who's another loser of this weekend, was clearly a fish out of water last year. Clearly not good enough. Clearly his stock is going down. I think you'd be great with Valtteri in that car. And just to your point about Pierre, he's all they got right now. They have a very similar situation to Red Bull, unfortunately, where one driver can do a lot more and the other drivers are just nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The solution, like Red Bull, would have been to maybe, I don't know if it was to keep Perez, but it definitely was not the way you got rid of Perez. And I think Alpine needs to bring in someone with Perez quality into a car that's also tough to drive. You can do worse than Valtteri Bottas. So I said a lot there, and it may make sense when I listen back to this.
No, I think it makes sense. It's a bit all over the place, but I get the point.
There's so much I want to talk about. There's so much on my mind. I can't get a clear, concise thought right now. One day.
Yeah. Are we done with Alpine for the moment?
Did you have another good?
I do. You're not going to like it, but I do.
Oh, boy.
Aston Martin and specifically Stroll.
This is a Stroll positive podcast, Sean. Why wouldn't I like that?
If you say so. He has been pointless in more ways than one for the last 6 races, or for 6 races prior to last weekend. Let's put it that way. And then he comes out, and Aston Martin had upgrades this weekend. They've had upgrades for like the last 2, maybe 3 weekends. And all of a sudden, the car is performing. So I don't know how that happened, but they're out there, and both drivers scored points. And I think this is the first weekend where both drivers have scored points together. Looks that way.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is the first double points finish for the team. And Stroll was in 3rd place for most of the race, holding up the entire pack until he got passed by Hulkenberg, and then that was the undoing of him. He ended up slipping back to whatever that was, 8th place?
7th.
7th. So it's a reasonable amount of points. It's the second highest amount of points he's had all year. So I'll give it to him. He does like these conditions. If you remember back to Turkey in 2020, I believe it was.
I do.
So these conditions suit him for whatever reason. He seems to like the rain, and he's reasonable in the rain. Alonso was a little butthurt that Stroll was in front of him. You know, Alonso complained on the radio that they always screw up his strategy. But at the end of the day, they got him onto mediums at a reasonable time, and he managed to get 2 points out of it. So I'll give it to Aston Martin this weekend. They had a good one.
For the first time ever, Stroll was... So, yeah, Alonso can't complain because Stroll was the offsetting strategy. Stroll was the guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
and he kept it on the track.
Yep.
And just because he timed it perfectly and dealt with the conditions doesn't mean they were screwing Fernando.
Well, that's the way he sees it, right? Because he got it first and it worked. Therefore, fuck. He got it first and it worked. Therefore, they favored him over Alonso. And when Alonso did it, he couldn't make it work, right? Or they gave him a counter strategy to what they gave Stroll, and it wasn't as good. It's all bullshit.
Exactly.
It's Alonso being a whiny little bitch, but whatever.
The ironic thing is, if Stroll was kept on the Inters and not the guinea pig, he probably would have finished even higher. Like, because of the offsetting strategy. Like, if it was timed a little differently, he might have been able to compete with Hulkenberg throughout the race. He might have even got that podium.
Mm-hmm.
Because they pit him quickly and often. Whereas if he just had maybe like a 2-stop like Nico, he might have fought for the podium. So I don't know what Alonso's talking about there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lance, for helping Alonso get 8th or 9th. Anyway.
Yeah.
Shall we get on to the controversy?
Sure. Let's do it.
Oscar Piastri penalized 10 seconds, winning the race for being, I forget the definition of the penalty, driving erratically or something like that, or excessive danger.
Driving erratically behind the safety car.
Sure. I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of them. 10-second penalty for that. Ruins his race. Instead of winning the Grand Prix, he comes second behind Norris. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Norris is British at the British Grand Prix, and the stewards awarded a damaging penalty that they've never awarded anyone before at a time that made no sense, when he did it earlier in the race and it wasn't a problem. I'm sure it's just a complete coincidence. But before I go off on that, do you want to give your take on it, Sean?
Yeah. It was a completely merited penalty, and he deserved to get it.
You would give a 10-second penalty for that?
Yes.
Would you have given 2 separate 10-second penalties for him doing it earlier?
No.
Why is that?
He had one opportunity where it was, let's say, marginal, but risky enough that it got everybody looking at it. And then he went over by doing it a second time, even worse. So, do you want to get into my analysis of it, or do you want to go off on a rant on your thoughts first?
I don't even want to go up on a rant. I just kind of want to tell Oscar that you're going to have to deal with shit like this. That this is what happens when the British driver is losing. You will get ridiculous penalties like this. He wasn't
losing. He was 3 seconds behind.
Max Verstappen was in second. Oscar was 11 seconds ahead before a safety car. That probably shouldn't have happened either. That's another question of why that happened. Oscar running away with the race. Lando Norris unable to get back.
Torrential downpour.
They didn't safety car the race in Canada in 2024. They didn't safety car the race in Brazil. They red flagged the race if it was torrential downpour. Why a safety car? Mm-hmm. Why not a red flag? Why the timing?
Brazil was worse rain.
I would say it was probably about the same. It was probably about the same as worse than Brazil. It was probably about the same in Canada, which they let the race go on.
Sure.
There was only safety cars. There was only safety cars when there was accidents, not just to stop the race. They could have done a virtual safety. They either should have done a virtual safety car to wait out the rain, or red flag. Why a full safety car?
Two different race directors.
That's a problem. They had precedent.
Well, it's not a problem.
They had
You had a race director who was fired for no reason, and a new guy brought in, and he's interpreted the rules in one way. So, precedent or not, the race director has the final say, and he made a call. And just to be clear, the race director is not English, so your theory goes out the window there, Nick. The media has no say over what the race director does, and the race director is beholden to the rule book.
Who are we kidding? To keep their job, they make the media happy. We've seen this merry-go-round for years. The one affects the other. If one pisses off the media goes like a hound at them until they're fired or they resign. That's okay. I'm trying not to rant about this. I'm trying not to make this all about British bias. I'm actually trying to listen to you give a fair explanation about this. It's just, we've seen this script a million times. We've seen 2021 whenever Mercedes hit Max or anything like that, no penalty. When Max got hit, no penalty. Whenever Max did anything incrementally bad, 3-place penalty, 10-second penalty, all that bullshit. We saw this in 94. Michael passes Damon Hill in the safety car. He's running away with the title. They find an arbitrary rule out of nowhere. It wasn't even in the rule book. They just made an arbitrary decision to black flag him that race when they've never done that before and give him a 2-race ban to get the title fight going. This isn't
what we're seeing here.
This isn't as bad, but it's along the same lines.
No.
This is along the same lines because they're trying to get Norris back into the championship, in my opinion. That's what I saw.
Before Austria, the FIA clarified the rules about safety car infringements and everything else. So, Oscar got a 10-second penalty for driving erratically behind the safety car because he stomped on the brakes unnecessarily. Now, Oscar's justification is going to be that he is leading the pack once the safety car lights go out. The safety car peels into the pits and Oscar can dictate the pace at which the pack drives. The problem is he is not allowed to do so in a manner that causes a dangerous reaction from other drivers. If you are on a straight and the safety car is driving at a pace that is reasonable for the conditions and is safe for the position on track, there is no reason to slam on the brakes and slow the pack to a crawl. Now, it's not explicitly called out in the rules because, frankly, you can't have regulation that's that specific. But the race director would have seen that as an unnecessary application of the brakes. They were halfway down the straight. They were not anywhere near a racing braking point. So at safety car speeds, they would have been able to take that corner without braking. But they were nowhere near the corner. They're halfway down the straight. There's no reason for Piastri to hit the brakes as hard as he did, let alone at all. And that's what the race director considered unsafe. No one would have expected him to slam on the brakes to stop the pack.
He wanted a clear exit into that corner. They were coming up on that corner. They weren't halfway in
They were nowhere near the corner at those speeds that they were at before the safety car had just peeled into the pits. The braking point at racing speed is after the pit entry. He did not need to hit the brakes.
Unless he wants a perfect exit. He wants to slow everybody down to have a perfect exit to start the race in a way that benefits him as much as possible, which he is entitled to do.
But you can't do that unsafely.
But Max said
do that unsafely.
Max even said he didn't do it unsafely. They're making up this arbitrary rule, and the tell is that they're bringing out PSI braking or whatever. They're starting to use big words because the bigger the lie, the more you believe it. So they're starting to use.
Nick?
I don't even know. That's what I'm saying. Right. They're brake PSI or pressure something.
Pounds per square inch. It's a pressure, which is a measurable for how hard you hit the brakes.
And they have no measurable. It's not written in the rules for what the metric is. This is an arbitrary ruling.
No, but it doesn't need to be. The rule that he broke was driving dangerously behind the safety car. Slamming on the brakes to a point where you are stopping the car in the middle of a straight is reckless behavior.
Then George needs his win revoked.
No, because that was not the same situation.
It was a similar situation, and his was earlier on in the straight.
No, it was not.
Along the long straight of Canada?
It was a long straight, but the pit entry in Canada is much different than the pit entry in Silverstone. Compared to where that corner is, you have a straighter pit entry into Canada. So the safety car would have been in front of him for longer before the lights went out. He would have had less time to the corner. It makes more sense for Russell to have braked harder going into that corner than it did for Piastri, where he was, let's say, 2/3 of the way down the straight, if you don't like halfway.
He was closer to the corner. I've relooked at this. He was a lot closer to the corner than they give him credit for. And it's at his discretion. If they don't have if they don't have a metric, if they don't have a neutral metric for brake PSI or whatever they want that they're bringing up now, then why are they given this arbitrary penalty? Because they think it looks erratic. Because they think it looks erratic. Max said it wasn't even that unsafe. Max is sitting there complaining because he doesn't want to get a penalty because he knew he wasn't really paying attention. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of nonsense going on this weekend. How many articles were written about Oscar Piastri's chances this week going into the race? 0. The championship leader has no articles written about his chances for the Grand Prix win. And he's running away with it and gets a ridiculous penalty to stop him winning. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm unfortunately so used to seeing shit like this over the years in Formula One. I just move on, Oscar. Realize that they're going to do shit like this to you all the time and just win even better now. Make it inevitable. Because you're not wrong. You've done a good dissection of what happened about why he got the penalty. But it just kind of comes out of nowhere, right?
No, it doesn't come out of nowhere. He made a mistake.
Yes and no.
That's all. But that's all there is to it, Nick.
Max did a lot of Max did shit like this earlier in the year at Imola. Hamilton did shit like this in Baku 2017 with Vettel. Russell, I think, arguably was just as bad if we're going to compare.
Right. But do you not see that everything you've just listed leads up to we have to fix this problem? And if you continue to let it slip because, it happened here, here, and here, it's going to continue to happen. They were very clear in the lead up to Austria. If you fuck around behind the safety car, this is what you get. And a race later, something happens, they have to act on it.
But I don't think.
And I get your point about catering to what the media says, because the media hypes up certain things, and we talked about this with Ferrari, right? The Italian media puts it out there so that the people pick it up and then run with it and then force Ferrari to do something. Yeah, it happens. But like we've said before, F1 is not a British organization anymore. The FIA has never been a British organization. The steward himself is not British. The FIA president is not British. None of this adds up to your nice little neat theory of the British media wants Norris to win, therefore they manipulate everything. This is the stupidity of conspiracy theories, where in order to make that work, you need so many people involved to handle this in a way that you don't drop the ball, and it's not happening, Nick.
Or as I've said in past episodes, when you lay the soil a certain way, the flowers that come out will be the same. When you prep the soil and you fertilize it a certain way, you will get the same fruits, you will get the same flowers. Just because there's no British people in charge doesn't mean it isn't run the way it was for the past 15, 20 years. And it always seems to help the British driver. That's how I see it, unfortunately.
That's how you see it. That doesn't mean that's the way it is.
I think it was just very... Sorry, go on.
Who's turning the key?
In what sense? What do you mean who's turning the key?
There has to be somebody creating the narrative to put this into play the way that you're seeing it executed. Who is that?
I don't think they even know anymore.
So you're saying it's just an anomalous entity, the general consensus of everybody in F1 coalesces around British drivers?
I think the media puts a spotlight on them, makes them seem more popular, and they get help by the stewards. Because it's a tough one to explain, and I'm happy you pressed me on this because it helps me think instead of just spouting shit. But I think they get it into our psyche, like what we saw with Bierman. Oh, he's amazing. Oh, he's amazing. Let's repeat it a million times over until it becomes an inevitability. And I think the stewards, whether they know it or not, are being influenced by this. Or in even some cases, I think they see it and they think that's how I get ahead. And I want to just stress that this is my opinion, because you're right. It's really hard to pinpoint this. It's hard to prove it. And that's why someone like you who comes at it with just, you just lay out the rules, lay out the facts. It's kind of hard to see it. But when you see a similar trend, you start to question things.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Nick, who are the stewards at this weekend?
I don't know.
Right.
I'm not saying you're wrong. You're right. Like in that sense, like just don't just spout conspiracy theories. But I've now seen this on at least 3 different occasions, right? There was Hamilton 2021 helped it every which way. There was Hill helped in 94 every which way. There's now Norris has been helped pretty consistently. All the King's horses, all the King's men are trying to put Lando Norris together again. Because it's clear he's not as good as Oscar. But if you can be helped a little bit at a time like this, maybe we can piece together a championship. And I feel for Oscar because he's probably done this a million times. He probably thought, I'm just going to slow it down, get a good exit into that corner. And instead he gets a 10-second penalty. And now the rules have been clarified. Now they have a metric. Now they have a ruling system, whereas I would say this weekend it was arbitrary. He has to be the guinea pig. It's unfortunate. Move on. But I can't help but feel he got screwed.
Yeah, he didn't get screwed. But, all right.
Okay. That's fair. I'm glad we took both sides on this. Anything else you want to elaborate on that?
No. I think I've made my point. I think it was perfectly justified. I think this is the first time we've seen Piastri truly, let's say, frustrated at something that's happened, right? And he's got to learn from it and move on.
That's absolutely right.
He is the championship contender, and realistically, I think he will be champion. He's got to learn how to overcome days like this, and I think he'll bounce back perfectly fine. His comment on the radio that the penalty was unfair, therefore let me buy Norris and then we'll fight on track was a little fucking nonsensical in my mind. And David Coulthard put it pretty good on the commentary that Piastri has 2 things confused here. Yes, he got a penalty. Yes, you can see it as unfair, as you do, but it has nothing to do with Norris taking the lead. He got a penalty for something he did under the safety car that had nothing to do with Norris. As a result, Norris took the lead. It's a 1-2 for the team. There's absolutely no reason why they should have done team orders, and I'm glad that they didn't. So, I don't know if you got that on your coverage of the race, but that was something I found to be a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. And we did see that on our end. And that was his frustration. That was Oscar calling uncle. Instead of him snapping like Verstappen, that was him being like, I'm pissed. And he snapped his car a couple laps later. If you saw that. Yeah, well, you definitely saw that.
Yeah.
So he was not driving the same after that. And conversely, Norris, who was completely useless the entire weekend, suddenly came alive after Oscar's penalty, which I'm not speaking to the elaborate conspiracy that's in my head. I'm just saying he needs that buffer mentally in order to finally perform. And we saw yet another example of that. Fast all weekend, fast in practice, completely useless in the last part of qualifying. Happens every time.
Yep.